it go? Oh, it says
It's
you
live.
Yay!
It always
Okay.
takes a second. StreamYard.
It does, and I
Yep.
always panic like I broke it. I clearly broke it.
Like every time, but somehow still this is you.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the fact that StreamYards run off of potato.
Yeah. Potato electricity. That's clearly what's running this business.
My friends and I make that joke about the Among Us servers. I don't know if you've played Among Us, but their servers are sometimes garbage, and so we always go, "Oh, it's run off potato servers."
Yeah, that makes sense. Hi for all of you here. Welcome. We're just waiting for Lo. Unfortunately, Kat from Paperback Dreams can't make it. We are just waiting a couple more minutes for Lo to show up. Hi, Linda. Hi, Ian. Yes, potatoes.
Irish. I was gonna say the Irishman's noticed that.
Yes, this server is run on a potato. The StreamYard server. Hi. Hello. We're just waiting for our Lord and Savior, Louisa.
Shout out to Ian and Linda for hearing me freak out for the entire week. Because literally every day I was like, I should tell Rachel I'm going to be stupid. I should tell Rachel. I'm like, oh, no. So I'm like, I'll wait till the last minute to tell you, like,
Kat even told me, she was like, even if I could make it, I would have nothing of value to add. And I was like, I feel that way because I feel like this is so much smarter than I am. So
right? I'm like, there's that joke, like it's an audio from a show or something, but it's usually like on cosplay TikTok, which is what I mainly follow. And it's like, I'm sorry, is this AP bio or regular? I'm sorry, I need to be in regular bio. This is AP bio. I need to be in regular bio or something like that. They go, this is regular bio. I was like, oh, good. I just never knew I was stupid. And I'm like, I knew I was stupid. But I didn't think I was this stupid.
Listen, first of all, I don't think you are stupid whatsoever, but I can relate to the feeling of opening this book and just being like, oh, this is one where I'm going to have to Google what words mean. Crap.
By the way, everyone, it's not the book's fault.
No, it's not at all the book's fault. Yay. Hello. Oh, let me
You're live already. I'm so sorry I'm late. This is so very Brazilian of me.
Oh, we're just shooting the shit. We were waiting for you.
You missed me trash talking Jay Kristoff.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Can you do it again?
Yeah, well, I met him.
We will always make time to shit on that man.
Do we have time really quick for me to tell her the story?
Wait, no, Jay, wait. Is he as creepy in real life as he is like
a little bit? But the story is, so I in 2019 had a group of friends that I was really close to, and we all got together at Santa Monica for Y'all West, which is like the West Coast version of Y'all Fest. Which was great for me because I didn't have to buy a plane ticket because I live in LA. And Jay Kristoff was there. And so there was this huge line. You had to go get wristbands so you could be led into the signing. He was like one of the main like events of the day, you know. And I had two friends who at the time both used she, her pronouns, which is important for the story. I want to clarify. I'm not like, it's important you know that they use she, her in the context of the time.
It's relevant.
It is relevant. I'm trying to be I swear I'm not like being transphobic. I'm trying to explain that this is important for the story. So they both at the time referred to each other as their girlfriends. You know? So one of the friends lived in Scotland, and they their partner went and took a copy of Aurora Rising. We bought them a copy and went to get it signed. And we had asked for permission beforehand, like, hey, you know, the friend can't make it. We want to get you to sign in and send it to Scotland. And they're like, yeah, no, it's cool. So we're in line, and the friend goes up and is like, hi, I'm getting this signed for my girlfriend. And he goes, oh, that's so sweet of you to do that for your friend. You're such a good friend. And we were all like,
yeah, yikes.
These roommates, gals, like
yikes on several fucking bikes.
It was very much not a straight relationship. Those two were not in a straight relationship.
And I was like, is he that old that he uses girlfriends like my grandmother uses girlfriends? Like, oh, I'm just gonna get together to play bridge with my girlfriend. Like,
I'm like, I don't think that. Like, Maybe, but I forgot. There was something else he had done where we were all kind of like, that was weird, right? That was weird. But that was the main thing I remember, is him being like, you're such a good friend to my friends who were very much not in a straight relationship.
That is on brand for Jay Kristoff, I will have to say.
It is. It
It's
doesn't
very on brand.
Does it make me cringe? Yes, but that is the general feeling every time he does anything.
Yeah, somewhere there's a picture of me and Jay Kristoff together.
Wow.
It's me cosplaying as Nina Zenik.
Oh,
meeting Jay Kristoff.
He doesn't deserve you at any time, but he definitely does not deserve you as Nina Zenik.
Yeah. No. My first cosplay is Nina Zenik. I've upgraded since then, but yeah. So, anyways, Jay Kristoff.
The worst. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for coming to Feminist AF Book Club. Today we are discussing one of Lo's favorites, which is Caliban and the Witch by Silvia Federici.
Once again, I am flexing my edition.
That is a beautiful
Lo's
cover.
editions are always better because Brazil does it better every single time. This was quite a experience reading this.
I'm gonna hide.
I was talking before the live about how I said I cracked into the book and I'm like, oh, this is one where I have to Google what words mean. So, all right. But the knowledge and the theories that she presents are spectacular. That is how I would describe it. So
it's not her, it's us.
If you guys want to kind of give your like general thoughts, Lo, you've read this several times, so I guess general thoughts. Do you want to say like what this book means to you? If you just
So hi, how's it going, everybody? I have been a little bit of we call it in Brazil arroz de festa, which is like party rice, where I'm everywhere at once. In Rachel's channel, because I have been making myself known here quite some time. I know you're all very tired of me at this point, but in case you don't know me, hi, my name is Lou. I have a booktube channel called Lou Reading Things, but I am also a human rights attorney, and I have recently finished my master's degree in philosophy of law, and I am about to start my PhD also in philosophy of law. Caliban and the Witch was one of those books that I started reading when I was 17, and I read it several times, and I feel like each time that I read it, I understand a little bit more. And we're going to explain a little bit more, or at least I think we should discuss a little bit more, why is it that the American education system, even if you go to college and why does it, so many things that I took as basic for my understanding of this book were not available. Those tools were not available to American pupils.
Oh, I'm scared.
This is an interesting conversation that I thought while I was getting ready, and I think that we share. Did you just hear my dog meowing?
I did.
Let me open the door for him.
This is great because I am currently in the American education system.
Yes, I really want to hear that. But basically, we're going to get back into the book properly in a little, but that's who I am, basically.
I love that idea. So my perspective will be a little bit different just because the majority of my schooling was fundamentalist Christian, and I did not, I attended college for all of 8 months. I went to a technical program and then dropped out. So Knox will be able to give a better perspective on the college idea of that. So.
I graduate this semester.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my master's because I keep doing this to myself.
Yeah, proud of you. So yeah, if you want to kind of give your perspective, Knox, go for it on how did Lo put it? Why in the American education system we don't learn things like this, which Lo would consider very basic.
They just want to keep us from like realizing we can do better. I feel like at this point. Jesus. Hi, I introduced myself. Hi everyone, I'm Knox. I also have a channel, Knox Reads. This is like my 4th or 5th live on Rachel's channel. So you're also probably getting sick of me. And this
Too
book
bad.
went so far over my head. And it's not the book. I keep saying that because I want people to think it's the book. It's just me. Like every time I'm on Rachel's channel, I think I am like the least experienced when it comes to theory or just like learning these kinds of things. And never have I felt more certain that I was the dumbest person in the room than when I was like, oh, I'm going to be in a live for this. But that's okay. You should always have smart friends. They teach you things, and you can teach them things, and it's great. So this is just very dense, but I did like the parts that I did understand. So it's still a 5-star. And I'm so glad that you said, Lou, that when you read, you learn more every time you read it again. Because this definitely feels like a book that I'm going to have to read repeatedly throughout my life to keep learning from. But the American education system is effed as all hell, and I want to be a teacher.
I think that from my perspective, the reason that maybe part of it has to do with us being from the United States, both of us, because in the United States, you don't typically learn about Marxist theory. So from the beginning, we would have to have an understanding of Marxist theory in order to walk into this book and talk about Marxist feminism. So it's hard because we live in the United States where they don't teach that because of McCarthyism. That was Marxism, communism, and socialism were all used as derogatory terms to try to, in a way, it was its own witch hunt.
I put in my notes. Yeah. Radical feminists and social feminists weren't the same things. God, I really am the dumb friend, aren't I?
Oh, yeah.
And then I put, I need to know so much about Marxism. I'm screwed.
Yep, that I think is the U.S. experience of walking into this book, coming from the U.S. education system, because we don't learn stuff like that. And the only reason I know anything about that is 1, reading, and 2, Louisa. So
yeah, if it wasn't for y'all, I would know nothing about like, because it American education system is very much just, well, communism, Marxism are bad. And socialism is kind of communism, but like on like a little less seasoning. And so
don't let the communists hear you say that.
Well, okay, but literally that's like what we're. It's like, you know, so the communists were bad, and that's why you should not be a communist. And the thing literally I remember teacher saying is communism sounds good on paper, but in practice it's really bad. Same with socialism. And as I got older and was able to not just look at the stuff my teachers taught me, I was like, isn't that because the US keeps like putting themselves in the situation to make these things bad?
Yeah.
Oh, Joseph McCarthy, I hope he's rotting in hell.
It is.
Oh, yeah. I remember I saw a TikTok the other day of a guy just like a funeral, and they're like, he's going to be so, I hope he's good in heaven and stuff. And then cuts to the guy in hell, just like with the gun being like, where the fuck is Ronald Reagan at? That's me with Ronald Reagan, but also with McCarthy.
I did a report on Ronald Reagan when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and it was like, Ronald Reagan is such a good, like, it was like the things we were taught. I was like, oh, he said no to drugs, and he's like, do y'all have a version of the DARE program?
Yeah, we did actually, and it's called
God.
Proerd, with the same lion. With the same lion. This is because of USAID. I am not shitting.
I was like, I bet this has to do with the United States.
Yeah. And like the cops used to go at our schools with this fucking lion, and they would teach us to sing about, you know, don't do drugs. And because we're Brazilian, it just turned into a fucking meme. And fun fact, the person that like they did like essay championships in the state, like who wrote the best anti-drugs essay, like would get prizes and get to meet with the governor and stuff. And the person that I know that actually won and met the governor is the biggest pothead I've known in my entire life. Like sometimes I would get to her house so we could study. I'm like, dude, you're way too baked for us to do literally anything at this point. So yeah, it's an international thing, or at least, you know, something that the United States has kindly offered us.
Is that like the other version? Like I always say, if you want your kids to not grow up religious, you send them to a religious school.
Yes.
Is that
yes.
Like the other version of that?
Oh, yikes. Luana says, I still remember some of the songs.
Proegi, a solução. Proegi, é o programa. Yeah, I know. I do remember.
Dare shirt. Everybody. I didn't because they didn't have Dare in Fundy schools. They taught you if you do drugs, it makes Jesus sad. So that was our Dare. That was it. Maybe a McGee and Me episode. But yeah, we didn't have Dare. But everybody I know had Dare shirts. And I was like, dang, I want
Mine didn't because we had uniforms.
Oh.
So they didn't give us Dare. We got like the Dare notebooks, like the Dare workbooks. It's like, and then take these home to your family so your family knows not to do drugs. And I'm like,
yeah.
You know, so little 6-year-old me is like, Grandma, you shouldn't do drugs. My girl was like, what the hell? Okay, sweetie, I'm not. My girl was like, I'm not doing drugs.
Are you?
Yeah, like we're doing Dare. It's like, what the Ronald? I had the chance to get a Ronald Reagan biography for free, and I almost considered it just like a burn it.
I wish I could. Listen, I think that the majority of our issues, and I am not exaggerating when I say that the majority of our modern day issues stem from the fact that Ronald Reagan was once president.
Yeah, you know,
Margaret Thatcher too. Reagan is the biggest guilty of all.
Oh, is Ian complaining about Margaret Thatcher yet? Oh, never mind. I thought that was because he had already said something. No,
you know what's interesting? I swear we're going to talk about the book after this. My grandmother was a Democrat, a staunch Democrat. But she was also a rich white woman in Connecticut. And she absolutely loved Ronald Reagan. And now, knowing things about policy, I'm like, why?
That's very confusing, actually.
But also, it kind of makes sense if you stop to think about it.
Like, I'm asking why, but I know the answer and kind of don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
There's so much of Reagan's politics. Like, I remember when I did a report, I was like, why would someone try to assassinate the president? And apparently it was for Jodie Foster, but I don't think it was because of Jodie Foster.
Okay, all right. I have questions I'm going to ask, and you both can hopefully answer.
Do you want me to go give an overview of the book first, Rachel?
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be great, and then I will start with
Right, okay. So, teacher mode, Basically, Caliban and the Witch is a book that was written by Siva Federici. A little later on in her life, she was very active as a feminist during the 1970s and forward. And Federici is a Marxist feminist. So we all know there are many currents of feminist thought, unless you're a conservative, then you think that we're all heathens and witches, but, you know, that's beyond the point. But she is a Marxist feminist, and she wrote Caliban and the Witch to investigate the ways in which the idea of a woman, the category of a woman, exists to sort of perpetuate capitalism. And she does this by explaining a very key Marxist concept. And this is why when Rachel said this would be something considered basic, this is not basic Marxist understanding. So this is not basic. The concept of primitive accumulation is not basic. What would be somewhat basic is that we are taught in schools the process of enclosures, the process of people being dispossessed of their lands, and how this came to a transition to capitalism. There were many revolts, and this is something that we do learn. And we also learned the Communist Manifesto too, which is, you know, but the concept of primitive accumulation, yeah, we do.
I'm just like looking at Rachel every once in a while and be like, did you learn any of this?
Not at all.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I didn't learn jack.
Yeah, but so let me backtrack a little bit more. Basically, she talks about this concept in Marxist theory, and I'm not even going into communism as a theory. I'm staying within Marxist realm of analysis, and that is called primitive accumulation. Primitive accumulation is this first process of the first taking of wealth, because it's important that we realize that in the Middle Ages, there was a lot of wealth that was common. You had land that was common, uses that were common. This is something that I was also taught in school. Like you look at a feudal, I don't know if this is something that was also taught, but like you learn how the feud had like the castle, and the castle had the lord, and then you had the serfs, and then you had areas that were common areas that were used for hunting, logging, foraging for things to complement your diet. So things were like that and had a lot of common property, and people could use that common property as they saw fit. And there was an emphasis in production to consumption, which means that you produced everything that you would need to consume. And so if you baked bread at your house, you would bake that bread in order for you to consume. You wouldn't sell that bread, or unless you would exchange that bread for something else. Primitive accumulation is when the means that the workers had to create those ways of maintaining themselves, the uses of common land, the uses of certain types of practices, those processes are taken away from them by this first taking of private property. Now, here's an interesting difference, because everybody's like, well, if in socialism, no one can have an iPhone, but it's a different thing, because you have private property and you have personal property, and those are two different things. Because private property is the property that you use to create the means of production. Hi, Artemis. Is the property that you use to create the means of production. It's the property that you use to grow grain, to farm, to grow cattle, and then that will transition into having a factory, that will transition into having a hedge fund. So all of that is private property. Personal property is your iPhone and your toothbrush. No one's taking that away from you. You can keep your toothbrush. It's fine. So in communism, no one's going to lose their personal property. Private property, on the other hand, is going to be collectivized as it was during the Middle Ages. So this process of primitive accumulation is basically in this process of taking what was common property, common knowledge, and common possibility of participating, and turning into things that people could only participate or enjoy if they had some sort of money or some sort of capital in order to participate in this. And this is where capital first comes to be. So if we are the OG Marxists, the very orthodox Marxists, ones who take Marx work literally, primitive accumulation happened once in our lifetime, from the transition to feudalism to capitalism. So when the Middle Ages stopped being Middle Ages and went to become the modern age, that transition had the primitive accumulation. When you take away people's lands and you take away communal lands, you create what it's called the landless proletariat, which will have to go to the cities and sell their labor in order to survive. And so this is a transition to capitalism that Marx talks about. On the other hand, but this is what I want to point out, okay?
I'm literally taking notes as you talk, by the way.
No, like a third of this should be taught, but like the rest of it, like the idea of primitive accumulation and the transition and landless proletariat, this is Marxist stuff. This is like, I knew this because my dad taught me, but I know that hi Delphi, I know that I'm another business. It's something else. But what Silvia Federici argues in this book is that primitive accumulation, ergo, this process of taking wealth, process of stripping people of wealth that belonged to them, was not a process that began and ended during the end of the Middle Ages, but is a process that is continuously done to this day in many different forms. So whenever you have to go to war with the country in order to ensure that you're going to have free access to their natural resources, this is primitive accumulation. Whenever you coup a country to make sure that you're going to have access to their natural resources, this is primitive accumulation. And what she says is that the process of primitive accumulation is not only a process that happens in the material world, but is also a process that will create some sort of disciplining of identities. And what this means, that the idea of a woman before this process of primitive accumulation meant something, And with this process of primitive accumulation, it had to be forced into something that it was not. And this process of forcing women to be something that they were not was solidified in the witch hunts. So what do you need the control of women for? You need the control of women, and here I say as a category of analysis, not as an identity. So as a general idea of woman, as something, as the person who can reproduce. The person who can reproduce has to be controlled in order for capitalism to control the yield of the labor force. Because if you can't control the uterus, you can't control how many laborers you will have available in order to exploit and generate more capital for those who have private property. So women are forced into this position of being this femininity that we understand today, and they have to be forcibly separated from understanding and being attuned to their own bodies by this process of witch burnings. That was this first step towards the building of this modern femininity as we know it to be. So I know that this is a very contrived argument. I'm not sure if I explained properly, but basically,
I think
like
so.
In very, very simple lines, what Silvia Federici says is capitalism has to consistently make sure that women are afraid of being burned as witches. We have to live our lives afraid of being burned as witches. This happens because women control the yield of the reproductive force, and the reproductive body has to be controlled by capitalism if it is to exploit people at the rate that it needs. So every time that you see people talking about abortion, people talking about reproductive control, people are talking about forced sterilization of certain populations, all of that exists because capitalism needs to control the yield of the labor force down to its extremes, even to the most unqualified, quote marks, labor force has to be controlled. And this is why you will have people who will, Rachel can explain this much better than I do. And this is why I said, like, this book, once you get past the very difficult language and the concepts that you don't really, that is difficult to understand, please stop. I don't know how to take compliments. Stop this. Please stop. But once you get past the difficult language and the theory, I feel like she talks about something that is very tangible for us, which is how we can understand, because I feel like feminism in general usually says like, oh, this happens to me because I'm a woman. And so this thing of reproductive rights and this thing of housework, it happens because of a woman. Okay, but why does it happen because you're a woman? I feel like there's a question before, and this is the question that Silvia Federici wants to answer, which is, the reason why women have to disproportionately shoulder the burden of housework and care work, shoulder reproductive violence, and shoulder a plethora of different things that happen to women because of being women. These are the things that happen because women have to consistently be confined to this place where they will provide more labor and more people who are capable to provide labor to capitalism. So once we take this step back, I feel like it feels interesting because every single time that you come to your house and your dishes are a mess and your house is a fucking mess and you haven't done the laundry and you're like, why can't I? Everyone does this. Why can't I do it? No one does this. No one ever did this. No one ever in the long history of humankind, either people had help, slaves, or people did not do it. And I feel like this is the knowledge that capitalism robs for us because it internalized something as our own fault that is a systemic issue. It's a systems problem that we have to come home after we work every day. Stop! I know you're going to do it. Don't do it. Oh, God damn it.
I think Rachel and I saw that at the same time because we both went like,
everybody keeps complimenting Lo in the chat. That's what we're going to keep.
I did almost text Rachel going like, if she wasn't such a great human rights lawyer, she should have been a freaking teacher.
Yeah, that's on the works. That's what I want to do. I don't like being an attorney, to be quite honest, but that's just because of the justice system in Brazil, because I am exhausted. But anyway, point is that I feel like if we get past the difficult conversation, I feel like these are conversations that we should have. How much of our time, if we identify as women, and then when you look at women as a category of analysis, it's interesting because this category has many expectations on it. We have to keep our house clean. We have to yeah, like we have those expectations. We have to be pretty. We have to look well. We have to brush our teeth every day. We have to wash our hair every day. Like all of these expectations that are put in the category of women. Women are nice, women are soft, women are soft-spoken, women are kind, etc., etc. What happens when we drift away from those categories, when we
You
don't
grow
do
up
that?
like me.
Yes. And exactly. And so like in a way, the pyres started coming inside our minds. It's not like someone else is putting us to the pyre. We are burning ourselves trying to get all of this done and trying to get this work done. And once we understand why all of this is put into place, why do we have to do all of this, then it becomes a whole lot more easy for us to understand, like, well, nothing's gonna happen if I don't do the dishes today. You know, there's like the world is not gonna end if I don't do the dishes today. Also, why do I have to do the dishes every day? Why do what you know? Why is society structured in a way that these are things? And then another book that Rachel has already read for the book club, and I was also a part of because was Women, Race, and Class. And I feel like this last part, Angela Davis explains quite well. Like there is a way for us to get out of this situation of all of this intensive work that is caring for someone else and for ourselves. But this is not done because when you do all of that is supposed to do, you get exhausted. And exhausted women don't go after their reproductive rights. And that is just it. And so I feel like I understand that the book's very difficult, but I think that this is something that needs to be discussed because as women and as feminists, we have to understand that our exhaustion, our tiredness, our feelings of self-hatred, our feelings of inadequacy, all of that is on purpose. All of that is on purpose and none of it is our fault. And I feel like this is a great grounds for starting the feminist movement that understands that it's not because it's not a gender essentialist thing. It's not that women just care better for children. It's not that women just it's not that. It's women are forced to do this because of capitalism.
I remember hearing somebody say that actually.
Maybe toppling capitalism will help that. I'm just gonna throw that one out there. CIA men watching me, this is kind of a joke.
You just gave me like a flashback to something I had heard one time and wanted to because my best friend for like 8 years, her and her family were very, very conservative. We're not friends anymore because we drifted apart. But I remember one time her niece was having like a meltdown, and the niece's dad tried hugging her, and he was like, there, and then she kept crying. He goes, okay, go to mommy. Mommy's the nurturing one. I remember going, dude, like, because I'm very lucky in the sense that my family is like not like that. Like, my grandfather is the soft one in the family. Like, not soft, like when I say soft, not in a bad way. I mean, my grandpa is like the more of like the gentle giant, like, hey mija, how are you doing? Oh, you had a bad day, I'm gonna go make you some fideo, things like that. My grandma is the hell hath no fury, if you mess with my family I'm gonna cut you, like, kind of
this
person.
Is very Latin American, by the way.
It probably is, because her mom was exactly like that. My granny literally, somebody came to the door with a gun and was looking for her son. She's like, well, you're going to have to go through me. My mom, as a child, is standing right behind my granny. And my granny's like, okay, bet. You have a problem with my kid? Come fight me. But, like, my grandma, I pushed somebody because they were bullying me. So I got mad and I pushed them against the balcony when I was a kid. And I got sent to the office. And I was so scared I was going to get in trouble. I come home and I tell them. And my grandma's like, yeah, that's my girl.
I love the complete disregard for everything that is like gender essentialist there.
Yeah.
Kind of. My grandma is in unfortunately too much pain to like cook and clean, and because she likes keeping the house clean, and unfortunately our house is not a clean house, and things like that. And my grandma, she used to like cooking, but my gramps does that stuff. I grew up my gramps, my gramps knows how to cook. My gramps does most of the cooking. My gramps, knows how to clean. We just don't do it. And like my granny, she worked, and when she worked multiple jobs, most of those jobs were cleaning houses. But in her sense, it wasn't so much of a because I was a girl, I was told I had to. My granny's like, I just need a job. Yeah. But I also know I'm very lucky to have grown up with a family that's like that, because I also know I work for a man who, while he's like, yeah, go get your education, all women need education, he's like, my wife is the smartest woman I've ever met, is also like, yeah, no, the girls handle the office stuff and the guys do the car stuff, because I work in a body shop.
Yeah, I think there's varying degrees of those beliefs in every family. Some, you can have families like the Duggars, who are like the ultimate, to me, like gender essentialists, following everything James Dobson believes. And then, your parent or your grandma and grandpa and my parents are somewhere in the middle. And then,
yeah.
So I think there are varying degrees of that. But I think that it's so insidious that even though there is variance, it's still everywhere, which is wild. And being able to read this book and trace the roots of that back so far is really incredible. It's incredible work that Sylvia Federici did.
Yeah, and I honestly like that she brought the idea of witches in this meantime, because I feel like nowadays we have this idea of witch, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or the TikTok witches that, do love spells, and you're like, why the fuck?
Wanted to hex the moon.
Exactly. Like, the one who reality shifted and tried to find Allah, and I'm like, well, okay.
The god houses. Yeah. Have you seen Hades is leaving Persephone for me? No, the hell he is not.
I don't know what reality shifting is. I know you need to maybe look for a psychiatrist. But anyway, the point is that we might be associating with that. But I like that she brings up the idea of a witch as something that is very revolutionary in its origin. Because if you were burned as a witch, it means that you were disruptive in some way. And that your existence, and I like that. I like studying witches. I think that this is a very interesting topic. And there is this book that everybody knows, which is The Hammer of Witches, the Maleus Maleficarum, which is the guide for witch hunts. It's very interesting. There are 3 different chapters in this book dedicated to the theft of penises. It's A+, so good. But I feel like the Maleus really establishes a sort of difference in the idea that it's not that witchcraft has to exist. It's not that witchcraft can or cannot be real. That is not the problem. People have to stop believing that witchcraft is real. And once you do, you can joke out of it because you know that it's not real. But again, it's very disruptive when you look at it back. Exactly. It's so incel.
I thought Catcher in the Rye was the Bible of incels.
No, yes.
You said there's a book that everybody knows, and then name a book I've never heard of.
No, but it's like, I think you should look for it because it's so good. Because like there is this one part in the book that he says, well, women are less liked by God because if you go for the word female, it means fey, which is, the Latin word for faith, and mina, which means minus, because women keep less faith.
It's so good.
It's so good. Listen, Rachel, I love you. This is the type of shit that fundies would say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for hours about the gender essentialist stuff that I learned and how, or like the time that my one teacher who said, well, women are called women because when the man saw her, he said, whoa, man. Like, oh, wow, you're a whole teacher. Getting paid. Ouch. Yikes. The men are just blessed.
No paper. Like,
yeah.
We just lost all the male viewers. All 2 of them.
Who cares? But yeah, I really like the idea if we go back. This is why I'm so always running after like books with witches that are angry. Because after a certain point, for you to be like, well, I'm a witch, you have to be really angry with the state of things. And the Maleus Maleficarum really establishes this shift And by the way, I made a video about this, but just for the people who may not have seen this, the story of the Maleus Maleficarum is very, very fucking hilarious. Because this guy was a bishop, and he went to a city in Germany called Innsbruck, and he went there to hunt witches, and he couldn't find any witches, but he found this one woman he was obsessed with, like Frollo obsessed with Esmeralda levels of obsessed. He was very fucking obsessed with the woman.
To break up.
Yes, I was like, he was very obsessed with her, but she was very rich, and he kept saying that she was a witch, that she had to testify because she was a witch, and eventually he was kicked out of the parish because like the archbishop was like, you are very fucking crazy. I need you to go. And he went, but because he was so pissed that he was kicked out of the parish, he wrote the Maleus Maleficarum in a rush just to get out of there and just be like, y'all are witches and witch-loving people. And like the idea that 5G will somehow cause you harm, or that masks make you inhale whatever, or like that somehow horse dewormer works for COVID. This spread very easily, and people started taking it as ultimate truth. But that is interesting because it solidifies an understanding of the church of what those gender roles should start being. And it's very interesting that happened in Germany, because then this was something that spread towards Protestants and Protestant religion. Yeah, like fire, hellfire, exactly. I totally imagine the writer of the Maleus Maleficarum writing that, because it's like it's outrageous. It's really good. It's outrageous.
You know how crazy you have to be for the church, who's usually just going to cover it up?
The Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church. I say in the house of
to
Catholic.
Be like, dude, it's not going to work out. That's a level of derangement that I feel like it's beyond understanding, because the Catholic Church is deranged in itself. But the point is, I really like, and I feel like she maybe traces this idea, because I feel like it's interesting how whenever we as women sort of stray from this idea of what we should be, that witch is always something that sort of comes up in a way. And it's like, I feel like somehow throughout the times, the very disruptive potential of being a witch, and like we all make fun of that quote, you know, we are the daughters of the witches who couldn't burn. Yeah, and people are like, ha ha ha, that is so stupid. Is it really that stupid though? Because if you think about witches burning because they defied, and many of them defied the enclosures in the first place, then you have something very powerful out there. Like you have this potential of occupying this space of a woman who simply does not want to bend down to those roles. And I feel like also, speaking from a colonized country, this is also very important, because the idea of a woman that was consolidated with witch burnings, and Silvia Federici explains this a little later in the book, the idea of this woman that came out of the pyre was the one that was forced on the colonized. And so there were Inquisition trials in Latin America on witches that were indigenous women who were practicing their own faith and refused to renounce their faith. And so I feel like there is a connection that exists there that is not just simply something, a white feminist thing, but it's something that is widespread, not only of the functioning of capitalism, but the ways in which you experience gender today. So if any of you know books that have really angry witches, I would appreciate, because...
Yes, leave all of your angry witch books down in the chat for all of us. Do a service to all of us. I kind of wanted to talk about how I really like when I read nonfiction that talks about history and feminism, because I like to look at the parallels between past and present. So one parallel that I picked up on was what led to this needing women to be controlled as far as their reproduction goes was the Black Plague. So the workforce, so much, a third of Europe was killed in the Black Plague, and the workforce needed to be populated. So they needed to create that by controlling women's reproduction. So anything that women would do to try to control their own reproduction was seen as heretical. So they were called witch. So that was sort of the spark that started the witch burnings, right? And she talks about that in the book. How do you think that that relates to today with COVID? So we see a lot of things where people are like, COVID restrictions, stupid, but reproductive rights, absolutely trampled. So we see a lot. I mean, the amount of countries that currently still abortion is illegal. You can't go get cytotech. Plan B is seen by many religions as its own form of abortion. So this is a problem to them, but the actual plague we're dealing with is not. So how do you think that those things are related, and do you think that we will start seeing even more restrictions on reproductive rights even as we are dealing with COVID years and years down the line?
That was an amazing question. I just want to point out that was fucking awesome. That was incredible.
Please. That's the best. That's the best you're gonna get from me. Like,
no, legit. That is so very good. I have to think about it.
I have like hit my peak with that question. It is all downhill from here, I assure you. Hi, Lois.
Hi.
Good to see you. Lois is going to be on with us next month for new Angela Davis book, and I'm so fucking excited.
Knox, you want to go first?
Yeah, Knox.
I've just been here the whole time. Like, again, I didn't realize this was AP bio. I'm actually gonna need to repeat the question. So hopeless. I'm sorry. I told you ahead of time.
No, it's totally okay. So the way that Silvia Federici talks about how the witch burnings started was initially there was the Black Plague, which killed like a third of Europe, right? So when this whole thing started where reproduction needed to be controlled, it was because they needed, in this capitalist society, to repopulate the workforce. Sorry. And in order to do that, you have to control the people who are, able to reproduce. And up to this point, I mean, women had always been in charge of their own reproduction, right? So they had ways to control their births. So in order to control the workforce, you need to control who creates workers, which is people with uteruses. So they ended up, making it that any sort of controlling your own reproduction was heretical. Therefore, you are a witch. And that was sort of what led to this whole witch burning thing, was just labeling all of these things as heretical. So now in today's society, especially in the United States, from our perspective, obviously, is we have the religious right who wants very much to have no COVID restrictions. So we have a plague similar to how they had the Black Plague. And instead of being concerned about that, I think that, and maybe you'll agree, that the main things that they are concerned about are capitalism and religion and the intersect of those things. And what ends up happening is that they are more interested in controlling reproductive rights, therefore being able to create another generation of workers, rather than caring about keeping the people alive who are currently living. If you agree or disagree,
I agree. The thing is, I'm thinking I thought two things when you said that. One, didn't the Pope just say that if you don't want to have kids, you're selfish? And two, I think the reason is because I want to point out that I am disabled when I say this, so people don't start thinking that I'm okay. It's because it's mainly disabled people dying, and we can't do the work they want.
Yeah.
Great.
So instead of being worried that, oh my God, like how often you hear, well, if you have a pre-existing condition, then you're screwed. But the rest of us are fine. First of all, I don't know a freaking person who doesn't have a pre-existing condition that was on that giant freaking list. Like I was telling my grandma, she was like, okay, well, it's not that many. And I was like, they put being nearsighted on the list, Grandma. And she's like, you've got to be effing kidding me. I'm like, Grandma, I'm not kidding. And I showed her, she's like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm like, I checked off 13 of these, and I'm the most able-bodied person in my family.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah,
because
no, that
you
is
can't
that
do
is
the
a
work
great
you want.
point.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
how many times you hear, well, if you're healthy, you're fine.
Yep.
Like, I have never been considered a healthy child. At any point, I've been borderline diabetic since I was like 8 years old and 9 years old. I've been overweight for my age since like I probably came out overweight for my age, probably. Like, I have never been considered a healthy person, and a lot of the people in my family, you know, we have asthmatics, we have diabetics, dialysis patients, all sorts of things, and it's like the reason people are okay with people dying during COVID is because in their heads, it's not, you know, oh, he was so young and he had so much to live for, you know, he was going to do great things. It's because it was, oh, well, you know, poor thing. Like, how many times do you hear people talk about disabled people like we're like freaking, our lives are over before they ever began in a way? You know, like,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
it's because
I agree that that's the assumption that's made. I don't agree with that statement.
it's like in it's like in their heads.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It's like in their heads. It's like, well, COVID will kill off all the people who aren't
COVID
in
will
their
kill
eyes
the
doing
undesirables
anything.
in a way.
Yeah,
The
it's like they're not
unproductive
doing
ones.
anything for us anyways, and we're just giving them disability checks. Like, that's what they're thinking. We just have to give them disability checks and all sorts of stuff, but they're not really doing anything that we need. We kill all them off, and it's freaking eugenics.
It is eugenics.
And it also affects the marginalized communities, like also through like if you're Black or brown, you know, like also more likely to get COVID. And so it's like also eugenics in that sense, because kill all of us off.
Yeah,
Have
like
more of us.
I
So
remember
I'm gonna move
on
again because
Twitter.
I have chronic pain, so I'm always moving.
No, it's okay.
My positions.
You're good.
No, I remember a tweet the other day that it was like, if you play this one specific game of Civilization, I think, there is this like one god that you can have that if you offer 1,000 human sacrifices every day, you get a certain amount of gold. And that is meant to be horrific. However, how many people per day are dying in the United States of COVID right now?
Woof. Yeah.
A bunch. I don't know anybody who hasn't at least come in contact with somebody who has had COVID.
No, I had
also
COVID.
my family, like those of us that live in this house, haven't yet, and that is super terrifying.
No, but like I feel like the two things that you two brought are so interesting because it's like it feels like a conspiracy theory, but it's really not. Yeah, but it's really not, because like you have to create a situation where people are desperate enough to sell their labor force for nothing. These situations come out of crisis. And if you think also about how many people in the US are quitting their jobs and being like, I will not do this anymore. And like how the situation keeps getting worse and worse and worse, in a way, this is to force people to accept the jobs that they know that they shouldn't be paid for, but they need to put food on the table, and this is why. But also, on the other hand, this is a very risky game to be played because, again, totally agree with you, Rachel, that people are more interested in controlling reproductive rights than they are actually getting COVID in contact, because in control, because, you know, also because people are stupid. But anyway, even the stupidity has a reason behind it. And I feel like it's important that we understand that capitalism is a god that requires constant sacrifice. And maybe we're all like, communism killed a trillion people in the span of 1 year, but the true god that deserves that one, much like the religion that it's like popped out of, because capitalism is a true, like, it's a child of Christianism, but like much like it has a single god which is the capital, and it needs to be appeased constantly. And people die because of capitalism every day.
Yeah.
We are counting the deaths for coronavirus, but there are, in the United States, for instance, how many people die because they can't afford insulin? How many people died because of the opioid crisis? And so all of those things also feed into how many people are dying. And then you have to have this control. It's like we have the plague, but it's not just the plague. It's a lot of plagues at the same time. And how this sort of feeds into this fundamentalist need to control the reproductive body. But I will say that this is a very risky business. Because every time that people start getting pushed way too hard in the sense to maximize profits in the way and to keep the status quo in this way, shit tends to go down. And honest to God, this is the first time I was talking to my dad about this the other day. My dad was like, this is the first time that I'm like, the United States could have a revolution. Like,
yeah.
Because like it's getting bad to the point. CIA men who's watching this live, this is kind of a joke also, but
it's all theoretical.
Hey, the theory, but
yeah, dude.
Yeah, but like the amount of times that you see people being pushed to this extreme, and then shit starting to go down. This is exactly what happened to Russia in a way. People were pushed to the extremes, and then they came to war. They were pushed more, and they toppled the government. And this is what happened. And I feel like it's interesting to think that because this has never happened in the United States, I am not counting the Independence War. Because whatever, that was like a child arguing with their parents. Okay. Yeah. But
I got you, Delphi. Come with me.
Yeah, but like also I would before I consider moving to the US, I would prefer some healthcare. But anyway, point is
so would I.
Yeah.
I'm so mad.
I love this conversation for that.
The healthcare thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, you need to continue. Like, this has never happened in the United States. And I was talking to my dad the other day, like how Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette could not have foreseen what was going to happen in the French Revolution, because nothing like that had ever happened before. Nothing. That was like the first time in history that something to that extent had happened in Europe. The Russians could not have the same excuse, because the Russians knew exactly what had happened in France not that long ago by the time that they, went to the revolution. And when if it happens in the United States will also not have an excuse. So in a sense, from the safety of my Brazilian ass 10,000 kilometers away, I'm kind of interested to see, because like I feel like you're talking about how much you were denied a lot of information in terms of schooling and in terms of education. The people are actively looking for that information. Sometimes they get it a little wrong, like that one guy who said that the ideal housing situation would be bunk beds in collective housing, which I'm still not over that. But,
I always wanted a bunk bed, though.
Yeah, but like not in communal housing, though. That's kind of fucked up. Anyway, I'm still not over that. But I feel like it's interesting, and I feel this is why sort of my duty as a little commie, this is why I was so intent on Rachel sort of reading this book, because I feel like this is one of the first books that sort of put forward new ways of thinking that can explain a lot of the misery that is going on around the world, but very specifically in the United States. And like how there is this part in the book that she says the world needs a shaking up.
Yeah.
Like right at the beginning. I don't know how is it that in the English version?
Yeah, it basically said the world needs a shake up. Hold on.
My edition, it came like this. I'm gonna flex again. This is the chapter.
Yay! Look at that. Oh my god.
I'm gonna need to get a physical copy of the book once I move.
No, the cover is so ugly.
No, it's ugly, yeah.
No, because I want to annotate, and
I annotated the shit out of my copy though.
Because speaking of which, I kind of asked Rachel this, and she told me your answer, but I just want to double check. You said this book is accessible, like easily accessible in Brazil?
What do you mean?
Is it easy to get your hands on this book in Brazil?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
If you can't buy books.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not here. Yeah. It wasn't really available on Scribd, like an official book. Okay, so Linda also wanted to read this book.
Oh, Okay, I'm a little shocked.
So here's the thing. I haven't been buying books. The only reason I own a physical copy of Open Veins of Latin America is because I was crying about not being able to get my hands on a copy of Open Veins of Latin America, and so Ian bought me a copy.
Ian.
And so, yeah, shout out to Ian for buying me a copy. But this book, I'm not buying books right now because I'm moving across the country in May, so I'm saving my money. And so I've been using like Scribd in my library. My library does not have a copy of this book, and my library is connected to every LA County Civic Library.
Yeah.
So that means that none of the 18 libraries in that circle have this book. It wasn't even like I can get hold on it. We don't have this book. Scribd doesn't have an official copy of this book. What happened is somebody uploaded the PDF, and that's the only way I was able to read it. Linda said that she was also couldn't find it at her library and things like that. Ian was looking for it, and he eventually found it through somebody had uploaded a PDF. This book is not easily accessible for people.
Yeah, Luana just said it. Not only the publisher, it's extremely easy to find this book. I have a second copy somewhere around my house that is from my advisor that he was like, you should read this. And then he never took it back and just bought another. But it's very easy. And the publisher actually put the PDF online for everybody who wants to read the book. So if you can't afford this, but it's only this specific book. However, if you're having difficulty finding books available, I will never suggest you to go to a website called Liggett.com and maybe do not search for the title of the book there, because it will give you a lot of PDFs that maybe it's illegal to own and see. But if you don't want to commit crimes, then I suggest you do not do that.
I'm also not suggesting that you go to Z Library to see if there are any PDFs, because you wouldn't want to download any free books that are not easily accessible for you elsewhere.
Actually, I don't have anything to not suggest because I don't know anything to not suggest. But I suggest you read this book.
So
when you find
the book was not available in physical copy at my library. It was not available in ebook format from the Overdrive app. It was not available through Hoopla. Scribd obviously only has it through PDF. And the only copy of it that I could find online was $20. So I was very surprised by that. But then again, even if it were available, it's Florida, so they're probably going to ban it anyway.
I'm moving from California to Maryland.
Oh, good Lord. All right. I have other questions to ask. Let me pull them up.
Not only you get a shit ass copy, but you can get it.
Get the ugliest copy.
If you can get that copy. If you can get that copy. It's not even a pretty copy.
But dirty.
Yeah, also, when you said the healthcare thing, I just thought about the fact that my grandma had to wait from September to May to find out that she was going to have surgery to remove her cancer.
Oh,
because her insurance had to decide whether or not. So, when I was 16, my grandma was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And it was so bad, the mass was just the entire uterus and ovaries. And they're like, okay, well, it's staged, it was an early enough stage that they're like, if you get the tumor removed and do some radiation, you'll be fine. And so she got diagnosed in September of 2015. And she did not get, hear back from the doctors, on whether or not she would get the surgery until May of 2016. And I remember this because her mom, my granny, died in March 2016. So my granny died not knowing if her daughter was going to get the surgery to get rid of her cancer. And it was because my grandparents are both unemployed and they don't really have good health insurance. They have the state stuff. And so the insurance had to decide whether or not my grandmother's life was worth buying the surgery, was worth giving her the surgery. And we were very blessed and lucky that eventually they decided yes. But I also remember coming home from school and my grandma was literally lying in bed crying because it was a very painful cancer for her. And that was what radicalized me, because my dad, who has money, can just go to any doctor he wants, essentially. And my mom and I have to make sure I got charged like almost $1,000 for going to the ER because I thought I was having a heart attack, because the hospital closest to my house is out of network. So when you said the healthcare thing, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
Hi, Kelsey's nephew.
Actually, I have kind of I don't know how to phrase this, so Lo, you're gonna have to help me. Okay, so one of the questions was, what do you think would be some alternatives for care work under capitalism? But I kind of want to understand, like, why do you think it is that we even? So, okay, my dad, who is extremely anti-socialist, says that healthcare is not a human right, and it's because people should not be forced to give you healthcare. So,
what? That is not what a human right is.
I don't think your dad knows what a right is. Does your dad know what rights are?
He has some thoughts on
water is not a human right because nobody should be forced to give you water.
So care work under capitalism. So we, as you know, the idea is that women should be taking care of the home and our families, and not just physically but emotionally. So I guess, oh my gosh, what I'm trying to say is, like, why is it that healthcare is not seen as women's work? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I have a follow-up question to this, and I need to understand this in the United States. Are nurses in the United States majorly women?
Yes.
Yes, but also there are male nurses that more people respect. People respect the male nurses more, even though there are more women nurses.
Here's the thing. When we think care work, there is a division, and I feel like she treats this a little when she talks about the passage from midwives to doctors and the medicalization of women's bodies. Nurse work is very much care work, and there is a difference between healthcare as what the doctor does, because what the doctor does is science. It's impersonal. Especially if you are in the United States, and you can talk to my friend Sophia about it, because she hates the United States healthcare as a doctor, because she's like, none of these people are trained properly. But anyway,
nobody hates the systems more than the people who work for the systems.
No, and she's like, Sophia has many opinions about healthcare in the United States, because she's like, in Brazil, you have to be treated, you have to train in a way that when you are in college, you are actually taking in cases from the public health system, because it's so saturated and it needs every help that it can get. So she had this time that she spent 6 months alone, unsupervised, in a city, just taking in patients who are poor.
Oh, there you
go. You like for a second.
Yeah, my internet's kind of fucked up. My mom's watching a documentary about a woman who murdered her husband on TV. That's
again.
Why. Yeah, my mom liked that stuff.
Different documentary, or is this?
Yeah, it's a different documentary. She likes that stuff, and there are many. Anyway,
I was listening to a podcast about Lorena Bobbitt yesterday, like the calm.
Yeah, Mom doesn't like podcasts for some reason, but anyway, point is, because what I was saying is that my best friend, who was an infectologist, she had to, while she was in college, she was on her 7th semester of med school. She spent an entire semester alone, unsupervised, in a small city in the countryside of my state, and she and her colleague. And everyone does this. This is not she decided to do this. Every single person in her class was allotted a city and had to go and spend a semester doing this, working with the public health system to give healthcare to people who were illiterate, who could not understand the medication that they were taking. They had to be trained in order to talk to people and make sure that they understand the medication and why they are taking what they're taking. This is the level of training that they have in Brazil. My dad is here.
Hi.
Hi.
My adopted dad.
Dad reveal.
We're talking Marxism. Do you want to say something? Are you sure?
Yes, I am.
You look so handsome. You cut your hair.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know. Vamos a ver.
Can I just say we don't have that for hospitals, but you know what? We kind of have something similar to for it.
No.
Have you ever been to a beauty school hair salon?
Oh.
That so when you were saying all that, I was just thinking, well, there's residencies, but that's not even close to the same thing, really.
No,
About it.
but
yeah. We do have something similar, but it's not for doctors. What you do have is a beauty school hair salon, which is where my mom goes to get her haircut because it's cheaper than a regular salon, and because you have to practice on the public, and so it's like the one for people who can't afford to go to a regular salon. The closest thing I could think of to what you're describing for doctors is the beauty school hair salon.
Yeah, so that is fucked up.
Rachel, am I wrong?
No.
But this is what I was saying. Like, when you have the profession of doctor as a man of science, and especially in the United States, where this man of science doesn't have to, insert the bald eagle here. But when you have this profession where he's just a science man, he just does the facts, and he's like cold and whatever. This is something that is very masculine. But you go to the profession that is very care. I got wine. Hey. So you go to the profession that is very care-based, where you have to give affection, you have to take care of the person, know their needs, understand what they want, to physically take care. That's where women are mostly overrepresented. And so there is this division as well. For instance, you see a lot of men who are college professors, but a lot of women who are kindergarten teachers. And so those are the differences, because everything that is, I love like the American iconography, ironically, because it's so tacky. I'm so sorry, but it's so tacky. Listen, my country, think about Carnival. That is very tacky. The United States wins. Anyway, point is, but I don't know if that answers your question, Rachel, but I think that is sort of the sense that there is a division even within those care industries, because the real care part is also mostly done by women. In Brazil, men who are nurses are kind of, people assume they're gay. It's like, it's a little
on that's here too.
Sense. Yeah, it's a little on that sense, because you're going away from what was allotted to you as your, a category, and you're going into something that is more for women. And so this is also an idea that certain men shouldn't do this types of work. I'm not sure if this answers you. I'm sorry, but
I feel like there's a connection I'm trying to make in my brain, but I don't know how to bridge it because I'm working on 1.5 brain cells total.
It's okay.
So I will eventually get there, and then I will text you about it undoubtedly so that you can help me make further sense of it. So the question was, what do you think would be some alternatives for care work under capitalism?
So we want to keep, I mean, I know we don't want to keep capitalism.
Like, how do we get rid of capitalism?
Oh, so is this us, like, are we saying if once we get rid of capitalism, what are the alternatives? Or are we saying
until we get rid of capitalism, what can we do about it?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, and the answer to this question, Lo already told me, is socialism, which obviously in the way that we get to communism in Marx's, 6 steps theory, one of the steps is socialism. Socialism is a stepping stone towards communism. So I guess that answers that. The answer is socialism.
Yeah, no, I actually have a story about this. That is my dishwasher, because I have to repeat this. For the first time in 25 years, I have a dishwasher. This has changed my life, and I'm like, it's hi, wine.
I've never had a dishwasher. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how.
Mom gave me food.
Hell yeah.
Anyway,
I am the dishwasher. That's what you have.
Yes. I was like, I am the dishwasher. But it's so interesting because there are 3 people in my house. If I'm going to do the dishes and clean the kitchen and leave everything done and ready for 3 people, it's going to take me at least an hour. But with the dishwasher, I just put the dishes in there and the dishes are washed by itself. It takes me 20 minutes to leave my house tidy. And like, I know that this sounds silly, but it's actually really not that silly, because when you have automatization that allows you to keep less time, that is something that can help. But this is also something that I'm talking to Rachel a lot, which is it doesn't matter how many gadgets you have around your house that help with housework. Women still shoulder the mental work. They still have to do all of this. And Rachel, if you want to discuss this a little with us, I think it's going to be interesting, because when you are in a house, the women still are the ones who tells what has to be done, what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. All is organized by women, and that is extremely helpful. Meu Deus, cachorro, a dog. Wait a second.
Theo, her dog, is so high maintenance. He's like a little mop of a dog. He's so
yeah,
cute.
he weighs like 4 pounds.
He's
my cat weighs more.
My cat weighs more than my dog. It's a little concerning, but anyway.
Also, I always forget that Rachel's cat's also named Artemis.
Yes.
Because earlier when you said Artemis, I'm like, I thought she was outside the room. And then I'm like, oh, wait, not my cat.
I forget that every time. Yeah, so I think that, and I've sort of like shucked a lot of things, because, so in my experience, I felt like I took on a lot when I got married, and that was sort of like expected of me because I didn't take on a actual job. I watched kids, which was like, under the table watching for like 10 different families, making money and just like shoving it in a sock somewhere. So I didn't have like a real job. But that was a real job. that is work. That's me taking on labor so that another person could go do their own labor, which was moms just wanting to go grocery shopping without 4 kids tagging along.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about labor just getting married, and then taking on kids. You are taking on, with every kid, an entire person who, for such a chunk of their life, if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing in parenting, you are everything for them. You are taking on an entire full-time job that you would never get time off from. If it's a weekend, weekends are meaningless to me because I'm a parent. I wake up when my kids wake up. So if that's 3 a.m. because one of them peed the bed, that's when I'm waking up. So you take on so much. So in the early stage of my marriage, it was, like I'm taking on the housework. When I lived with my dad, it was I'm taking on, all of this emotional work. When I lived with my mom, I took on nothing because my mom took it all on, and that's what she taught me to do. And so then I get married and I'm doing all the housework, and then I'm doing all the budgeting. And it wasn't until I had, so trigger warning for miscarriage, I had 2 miscarriages back to back, and I sort of just let anything go that I couldn't take on anymore. And I in fact had to drop a lot of things and just go into survival mode because that was too many jobs. I could not survive and take care of a 1.5-year-old who I could no longer nurse because of the miscarriage, because my body would not allow me to anymore, which that is a full-time job in and of itself, nursing. Especially if you are pumping and feeding, that's 2 jobs. That's 2 full-time jobs.
My mom had to, yeah.
Nightmare. I don't know how people do that. So I had to let go of so many jobs, and then I realized how much work I was actually doing. I couldn't be in charge of dinners and budgeting and taking care of the family. And now I do I feel less than even I should be doing, but I have to sort of like rework and reframe how I think of the labor that I do in this family, because it is an awful lot. Everything with the kids, because both my kids have delays and are involved in multiple programs. All of that is for me to, I am their secretary. I am their chauffeur. I am the one who takes care of everything as far as their programs they're involved in, their schools. Ryden has to go to kindergarten next year. That's on me to do that. Like, because I'm the stay-at-home parent, I have a ton of labor to do, and I never really saw that as work. And I think that this book even more so has changed how I feel about women's work, because it's so much labor and I don't feel like I saw a tweet the other day that somebody called pregnancy like an act of service, like a gift that they were giving to somebody else. And I'm like, it's not. It's a job. It's labor. It's literal.
It's literally called labor for a reason.
Oh my God, yeah. That it's constant, never-ending labor and work, and I this really helped me see that even more so, how that all of that sort of got delegated onto women as a whole, and now it's so insidious under capitalism that now we don't even see it as work, we just see it as obligation. And that's not right, because then whenever I'm not doing enough, I feel like I am less woman, I am less human.
Also,
yeah.
There's another thing that I just thought about, which is because of the way that this was structured in capitalism, doing care work starts to mean that you do care.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means that if you don't do all this care work, it means that you don't care enough for your family, for your children, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that we have to spread ourselves really thin in order to be able to handle everything, because this is an act of love. Like you were saying about the pregnancy thing, all this is an act of love. And it may be love. Like, I cook for my family because I love them. My mom brought me like wine and food because my mom loves me. This is also care work. This is also labor. And I feel like capitalism expropriates and exploits our labor because it expropriates and exploits the affections and the connections that we feel. And so for a man, they're going to go, well, I am doing what I need to do to provide you this care. I am doing what I need to do to tell you that I love you. I'm going to work and I'm putting money in the house. Mm-hmm. That is enough. But the woman is like, well, in order for me to prove that I do love you, I have to do all of this. Like you said, I need to be a chauffeur. I need to be a secretary. I need to be a teacher. I need to be a house cleaner. I need to be a nanny. I have to keep all of it. I have to be a spiritual advisor. I have to be a psychologist. I have to be all of those things in order to prove you that I love you. And so this difference in expectations is extremely harmful. And I feel like to address this under capitalism means that we have to have really serious conversations with the men in our life and be like, it's not enough that you're just like, oh, I'll do the dishes when you tell me to do the dishes. I need you to take responsibility for the dishes. I need you to look at the dishes and think, this is my problem too. This is my problem. I need to do something for this. And so because doing this is also an act of love, and I feel like it's important that we understand that capitalism is also exploiting us in the sense of our affections and the ways in which we love our people. Because like caring for other people is something that is done for thousands of years. Like people have been taking food to funerals for ages because it's also an act of love. But how do we turn this into something that cannot be exploited? And I feel like this is the really difficult question that we should answer. And this is truly the point where feminist inquiry should go, asking how should we go forward with this? Because there are things that we can do, like you can have state-sponsored childcare, because you do need more help than a single mother to take care of every single thing of the child that the child needs. Like the child needs to talk to other people. You have to have state-sponsored childcare so that the parents won't compromise a lot of their income with childcare. You have to have healthcare, because you have to have healthcare to take your kids. You have to have, not only that, you have to have possibilities of leisure and sports and activities that also have to be offered by the government as well. And so this is there are a lot of changes that need to be done to turn a society that is profit-centric into a society that is care-centric. And I feel like we can be insidious with this, because whenever we're like, well, the children should have like a county-sponsored like sport thing, maybe this would be good for the kids, and then the moms can drop off the kids there like 3 times a week, and that gives some time off for them to breathe. These are some ways that we can start Oh my God.
Mine's in the chat, so
I will take away many rights as needed.
Somebody tag Lois's partner real quick.
Just really quick DM, like, hey, you should.
But yeah, but I feel like if we start to do on those things like state-sponsored childcare, healthcare, maternity leave, paternity leave. It's not just maternity leave. The dad has to take time off too. All of those things are incredibly important so we can deal with capitalism.
Yeah.
And we can have some sort of life under this, because it's really unfair to lay this at women. But not only that, we need to make sure that this mental load is being shared with our partner. Understanding that bottom line is we're never going to be able to 100% make sure that, because we're wired like that. It's like my mom. Like, my mom leaves the house on my charge. And she calls me like 3 times a day. Have you done the dishes? Have you washed the clothes? Things will be done, but she still can't get away from this obligation. And this is something that we have to work with ourselves too. Because sometimes the house will be dirty and no one's going to die for it.
Yeah, so even when the kids are gone, I'm still doing stuff for them. So the kids will leave and I'll be like, all right, I need to set out pajamas for them, clothes for tomorrow. I need to charge Ryden's Switch so that he can play, his video game before bed. I need to make sure that Rowan has his tablet ready to go. I need to make sure that the bath is started. And I'm constantly, it's never ending list that I'm running through. So even when I do get a break, the first thing that's on my mind is I have so much that I have to go through in a checklist, and that mental load is in itself a job. It is an exhausting job.
That you don't get vacation from, and you don't get paid time off, and you don't get nothing. You don't even get healthcare out of it. Which is,
I don't even get treated nicely by my 2-year-old. I just want to mention that he is not a very nice coworker or whatever I am to him. He's quite mean.
This actually reminds me a lot of a point that maybe this is a question that I think would be interesting to discuss, because Sima Federici in the 70s, she made part of this movement called Wages for Housewives that basically wanted to quantify and pay. It was more of a provocation than actual policy, but the movement wanted the government to quantify the value that should be paid for housework and pay that to women. And this was, again, more of a provocation to make sure that women know how much the labor that they were doing was worth, and etc. But Angela Davis disagrees with this, because she says, even if we're paid for this labor, it's still going to be repetitive and isolating, and it's still going to leave people to be doing the same things over and over again without the possibility of reprieve. Even if you're paying them, it's not that they can turn off being mom for Sunday, Do you think, who do you agree with more? I want to know.
I mean, it's not because I think that she is the greatest of all time. It's certainly Angela Davis, because you cannot put a price on the fact that I am never truly going to be on vacation and giving myself a break. And I just want to note that, like, I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but without that, I cannot be at my best as a human without breaks. And I never truly get one, because the mental load is always there. If the kids actually need me, I do need to drop everything and go. I mean, I remember not that long ago, I was texting you like, well, dropped off the kids for a night at my mom's, have to go get them at 11 o'clock at night because one of them has an ear infection and the other one woke up. That's like, this is my job all the time. Even when I get a break, I don't get a break, and you cannot put a price on that. So as always, I agree with Angela Davis.
What about you, Nugs?
Yeah, so the mental load thing, I'm not a parent, but
You are a woman, though. So.
I am a woman, and my mom was in a very, I'd like to say it's unique, but it's probably not a unique situation, where she was a single mom for the first 2 to 3 years of my life. My dad wasn't present for the first 2 to 3 years of my life. He does not know that I know this, but that's his fault. And so my mom was blessed in the fact that she had my grandparents kind of as support and stuff like that. But I also know that my mom, when she was pregnant with me, quit the job she had and got a job she didn't like because she needed, something that was going to be able to support me. My mom hadn't gotten her bachelor's yet. when she got pregnant with me. The women in my family are all young mothers. So when I see people talk trash about young mothers, I want to fight, because I was raised by a series of young mothers. And when you said the mental load thing, the first thing I thought of was when I was 8 years old, I broke my arm the second time. I broke it when I was 7, and I broke it when I was 8. 2 different arms. The day of my mom's economics final, I think. Because my mom was taking night classes and working full time, and had a daughter. It's part of why it took her so long to graduate her bachelor's. And then she got it in a major she doesn't like, because it was more practical and she had a better job with it to support her daughter. And so I remember, I broke my arm, and the after school called my mom, but they couldn't reach her because she was finishing work. So they called my grandparents, because they knew to call my grandparents, so they couldn't reach my mom. My grandma comes, picks me up, and, we're like, okay, it's probably broken, because I was like, it's broken. I broke my arm again. My mom finds out. She called my grandma. She's freaking out. My mom was going to miss her final because she wanted to take me to get my arm taken care of. My grandma's like, calm the hell down. Like, no, you're going to go. You're going to do well in that final. I'm going to take care of her. She'll be fine with me. And I remember my mom telling me a story later. She's like, I was crying during my final.
Yeah.
Because while she was taking her final, while she should have been able to focus on her class, she was just thinking, my baby just broke her arm. She's probably so scared. She also knows that they have to, you put the bone back in place, and that is a terrible, horrible pain. And she's like, she's going to be in pain, and I'm not going to be there. She was like freaking out, that to the point where her professor like came over, is like, are you okay? She's like, my daughter broke her arm and I need to be there. She's like, okay, well, finish your final, you can go. But the point is, my mom,
which just shouldn't be the response of the teacher. Like, the professor should have been like, yeah, you take your midterms at another time, go.
Also, my mom got a B in the final and an A in the class. I want to clarify. My mom got a B in that final, an A in that class. But like, that was just one instance of, my mom was in school for her bachelor's. I want to say she graduated when I was 8 or 10 with her bachelor's in business. And like, in the time, I didn't really think about it, because I was like, oh, mom has Saturday classes, so that's why my dad came and took me to McDonald's. And it was always weird to me when it was like, you have to thank your dad for taking you out today. Like, you need to tell your dad thank you for taking you places. And I thought it was just being polite, like, oh, my dad bought me food, thanks, dad. Things like that. But it was like, my mom was like, I got to drop class because Samantha has to frick, because Knox has to go to the doctor and things like that. And my dad's like, I can take her, she is my child. And my mom is like, kind of like, oh my god, thank you so much, like, I'll make it. Like my whole family was like that, where my dad would be like, thank you for watching Knox.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm his child, and I'm very lucky that my dad was also like, this is my child.
Yeah.
I'm not watching her, I'm being her dad.
Yeah, but I feel like this is very, very similar. For instance, my mom only
Angela
got her,
Davis.
yeah, but
Davis,
my mom only got her bachelor's degree when I was already in college. It was my first year of college, and my sibling was in school, but it was like okay, it was like an okay distance. And I remember that when she got her bachelor degree, she took it and she sobbed. And like, she sobbed and she looked at us and she was like, I am so sorry to have been away. I was full out 19 years, like 20 years old. Like, you don't have to take care of a 20-year-old. The 20-year-old is self-caring. But my sibling was like, I was 20, my sibling was 12. That's also kind of self-caring. Like, we could all fry an egg and that would be it. But she felt so guilty that she was away doing something for her, not for us. And I feel like this is something that will follow women wherever we go, because we still feel so guilty of being like, I am doing this for myself, when men are just like, well, I'm just vibing here right now. And so that is, I think, the most difficult. Yeah, that is the most difficult part. And I feel like this is something that when we're talking feminism, and I see a lot of it in like online activism, TikTok, whatever, these are not conversations that are being had. And again, this is why I feel like it's important to bring up books like Women, Race, and Class, like Caliban and the Witch, because it brings those topics up so we can have honest discussions about the fact that we are working women and especially mothers to death. And like, this is not normal and something has to be done to address it. Because it's just, it's impossible. It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. We can't have women suffering like this, you know?
My mom is one. She's still paying off student loans from when she was getting her bachelor's, but my mom has always wanted to go and get her master's and her PhD. And then she slightly had a chance, but she didn't because I was about to start college. And I was going to need loans and I was going to need pay for school. So, and I'm going to get my master's now, but I'm doing that without, my parents like help with that. But it's kind of like always in the back of my head, I always felt like I was the reason my mom didn't get to do these things, because I know now, especially my mom she was very blessed that my grandparents were here, and my grandparents are like my second set of parents, like there's no downplaying the amount of raising that but like when I think about my mom, grandma says she never had a worry day in her life because she knew I was going to be taken care of. Well, she probably didn't have to worry. I know my mom worried about me all the time, My mom was always worried about something.
Yeah, that mental load
with
is
me.
always there.
Yeah, and then my grandparents got sick, and it wasn't just worrying about me. It was worrying about my grandparents, and now that I'm older, I am now the one worrying about my grandparents. I am the only person in my family that remembers what medication will put my grandfather into cardiac arrest, including my grandfather. I am the only one who remembers the name of this medication.
Yeah.
And like I used to have to take him to the doctors a lot because my mom was working, and he had to start going to the doctors at certain times. So it was like, okay, Knox, you're the one who drives, so you're going to take Gramps to the doctor, to the point where I had to drop a class because his doctor appointments, the only one that worked was during one of my classes. And while I didn't mind at the time, it was freaking exhausting, And luckily my mom was able to there's this thing you can sign where the work can't fire you for having to take days off because somebody in your family needs you for disability and stuff like that. Yeah. And she started taking it more, but she would wow, there's a lot of paperwork and he doesn't fill out any of it because he forgets to put Gramps, you had a heart attack one time. Oh, that doesn't count. It was because of a medication. Did your heart stop? Yeah, it counts. Put it on the form. The way. And I'm like, I have filled out my grandfather's medical forms. The many times when he is like, okay, well, he's gonna have to go to the hospital, I grab his pills, write down what he's taking, how often he's supposed to take it, how often he really takes it, the dosage, this, what was his blood pressure, what was his temperature, what was literally a paramedic was impressed with the list I gave because I've done this song and dance before many times.
Yeah, you have that care work.
You take it on. These things. It's very for Christmas. My grandfather's Christmas present from me was a medical alert necklace.
Genius.
With a QR code. I still have to set up the app on my grandma's phone because Gramps doesn't use a smartphone. But so they could just scan the freaking necklace and see he's allergic to this. You can't take blood pressure on this arm. You can't do this. These are all the conditions. These are the meds. I'm like, Grandma, you can even change what meds he's taking because it changes on a freaking monthly basis at this point. But it's I was thinking about, my mom was worried about me, and I think about stories like that. And then I think about once Gramps got sick, my grandma got sick pretty much almost near after. And then, like I said, that there was that year or period of months where not only was my grandfather on dialysis, and diabetic, my grandmother had cancer. Her daughter was in high school, which was just a freak out for her on her own, right? Okay, grandma got her surgery, but she was gonna still need radiation. Oh, we got kicked out of our house. And my mom had to find a place for us to live. Meanwhile, my uncle is up in freaking Fresno Just
Yeah, and there's no reason that social safety nets should not exist for all of this. For all of this.
Like, again, and I'm saying all this, and sometimes when I tell people this, like, oh my God, I'm like, you don't understand. I had it easier than other people in similar situations, because during the pandemic, my mom applied for senior food funding, and my grandparents and I have been getting 2 boxes, because there's 2 seniors, with meals. You just put them in the freezer and then you microwave them when they're ready. Meals since the beginning of the pandemic, to the point where we started giving them to other people who needed food and things like that. Like, we got the programs. My school freaking has a pantry that you can go to once a week and just grab what you need, and it's also needs based. So anybody can grab it, but you can grab more if you're in a special category, which I am, and things like that. I found out that program, right? Like, my school has a health center, which I found out about my freaking senior year when I'm graduating.
Of course.
That I could have gone to for like a knee. I've been wanting a knee brace since I was 12 years old. I can go to school and get a knee brace. Probably. Things like that.
Yeah.
My mom applied for WIC when I was a kid.
WIC in California is the
my mom.
I tell you what.
My mom got WIC when I was a kid. Things like that.
Being on WIC in California. I was on WIC when Ryden was when I was pregnant with him, and my oldest, when he was a baby. WIC is life-changing.
It's a lifesaver, right?
It is a life-saving.
I almost applied for CalFresh for all of us, but it would have involved so much paperwork we couldn't get our hands on, so we didn't. But the point is, this is me, and I'm still coming from with all I said, with all the worries and the labor of my poor mother and my poor grandmother. I also want to preface, my grandmother dealt with all of this too, and she also dealt with, in 2016, my granny also died.
Yeah.
2016 was a hell of a year, and then Trump became president, and we just knew it was going to be a bad year from the bat.
Woo!
But 2016 was a rough year for us. But my grandmother has dealt with all this, plus before I was even born, she dealt with my mom and my uncle. Then she had dealt with, she was the second oldest of 4 siblings with a mom that was working all the time. And then I have to think about my granny before that, dealing with 4 kids, and then dealing with her daughter being sick, and then dealing with her 2 grandchildren, and then her 3 great-grand. It's the more you think about it, it's holy effing cow. The amount of labor. And once again, still, this is coming from a place where we were the lucky ones in a way, because we were able to have access to programs that were able to help us out. My mom was able to sometimes get daycare through work or through my school if need be, or when she was taking Saturday morning classes, she would wake me up and she was like, all right. My dad would pick us up, he would drop her off at class, and he would take me to McDonald's, where I got locked in the bathroom while she was in class, things like that. Or we're going to go to the library and do homework together. And I was like, oh, cool, I need a study session with my mom, because all of this, I'm not going to say it was easy for them, because God, no, none of this was easy for my family. But we got super lucky. I got a free Thanksgiving meal from my school because I applied. I just applied for it. All these small things really do add up.
Yeah.
And it's the people who don't even have access to those. Holy cow! I don't know how. It's weird. It's just weird to think. It's really hard to think about, because I know how much labor my family has put in.
Yeah.
And imagining people, that's with assistance. So people who don't.
Oh. Is it me?
No.
Okay.
Have access to.
It's
a lot. It's a lot.
No, and I really think that this is a lot that Linda actually pointed out in the comments. The pressure of having to take care of people from your life because you're a woman or a female presenting folk. Also who's supposed to take care of my brother's things now? My sibling is full out almost 18, and sometimes I'm still but who's going to take care of my sibling? And then literally everyone in my life has to go, your sibling is almost an adult. You don't have to do that. Okay. So I feel like it's also a very much this pressure of doing care. And I feel like I love studying care work. I have a lot of friends in college and in grad school who study specifically motherhood, care work, and the law, and how care work is incredibly necessary, but also incredibly misunderstood. Because here's the thing, we're humans, we can't live without care. We have to care for each other, we have to be cared for in some way, but
Yeah.
it's the sort of dependency of letting one parcel of the population do the utmost amount of work in that sense that is unfair, because we all need to take care of each other, we're all responsible for each other, and we all, please stop mentioning Luisa from Encanto. This is not a good look, and I hate that she's called Luisa, and all of this is just a
how much did
personal
you hate the
attack.
same name part?
It's just a personal attack. I hate that she like gets nervous and starts twitching her eye, because I went to the hospital twice with Bell's palsy caused by stress.
Yeah.
So my eye drooped and I couldn't close it, and my mouth was like this, and it was very bad. And I got it, and people were like, "She's having a stroke," but I was not having a stroke. I was having stress. Which is, maybe in another possibility we can talk about how these things manifest in women as well, like how women have those sort of physical things that come up to them, because it was very bad and I felt very called out by that song. But it's really a little that song is a little bit on what we were talking about, like how much pressure we have to be under all the time, especially as women. And I'm not even including myself as a mother, because I'm not, and so I can even imagine the type of pressure that you are under, Rachel. And then you have to be like, it's fine, it's good, it's all good, it's all fine. Because
I think it's worth noting that everybody who has said that they relate to that song is a woman. I think that that's interesting.
I related to all three songs somehow. Like, I was like, yes. Why does nobody be? Also, why am I under pressure all the time? Why do I need to be perfect? But good news, hey, Lou, at least the capybara wasn't at least a main character, which is what
I didn't even realize the capybara properly. I skimmed over it and I was like, okay.
All right. So I think we're at almost 2 hours. So the last question I will ask is, so as Federici presents a witch in this book, which is basically a heretic, a terrorist to capitalism and to patriarchy, right? Something that causes upset to the systems put in place. So what book would you recommend to people that sort of presents a character that is a witch as Federici presents the idea of a witch?
Who burns everything down?
This is difficult. I
can go first if you would like.
Okay, go.
Okay. So I would recommend Graceling by Kristen Cashore for the first one. I have two. Because Katza, our main character, is very much like an upset. She does not work in the confines that people want to put her in as far as her gender goes. And that is a journey that she has to go on throughout the book, where it's like, how do I find my place as this woman who does not fit into these very specific gender roles, and how the people around her cope with that. I think that that's, if you read it and you find that she's not like other girls, you read it wrong. I'm sorry. There's no other, there's no, you read it wrong. Read it again. Try again. The other one that I would recommend is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. This is very much the like witch trials, heretics. So it's about a community that is religious, and the girls in this community are said to have magic that would tempt the men, and they have to go on their 16th, 18th year into the woods for like an entire summer. I don't know. I don't remember. An entire year, maybe? I can't remember.
I think it's an entire year because it's the Grace Year.
Oh, it's the Grace Year. So Rachel,
so it's the entire time. It's the entire, because I think they think it's like the entire time they're 16 is when this is happening. I have not read the book. It's on my TBR specifically because of you, but I'm pretty sure that's the premise.
So they have to go for their Grace Year and release their magic so that they can't, harm the men. And the question that you're always asking yourself throughout the book is, do these people really have magic or not? Like, is the magic a real thing or is it not a real thing? So I think that the way that Federici presents the idea of the witch is very much present in The Gracier by Kristen Cashel, or what, by Kim Liggett. So that's a good one. Wow, I'm running on fumes now. Holy crap! Sorry, for so long. Kelsey, it's so good. You have to read it. It's so good. There's a lot more that I could probably think of if I sat here for long enough. But
yeah, I think I would probably say The Bear and the Nightingale.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, I like that one.
Yes.
Yeah, because she is an outlier. She's also kind of a witch, but she really is an outlier. And I really like, not poking fun of you, Rachel, but every time I remember The Bear and the Nightingale now, I laugh a little because I remember, yeah, they're Orthodox or not Catholic.
Yeah, Lo had to explain to me the difference between Orthodox and Catholic the other day because I wasn't taught there was a difference because I grew up in Fundyland. Anyway, so embarrassing.
No, I'm sorry for this.
Oh, another one is, I think you would agree, The Wolf and the Woodsman.
Oh, 100%. So good.
Yeah.
Also, the scene of there was only one bed, but it was actually a tree. Look,
are they sleeping in the tree?
Under like the roots of the tree, there was like a cave, and there was only one root tree cave. Yeah, so good, so good. But yeah, but what I really like about The Wolf and the Woodsman, what I really liked about The Wolf and the Woodsman is the yearning. But I really like about The Bear and the Nightingale is that there is a very classic setup of witch stories in The Wolf. Also, what the fuck? I need food. But there is this classic setup of their, especially one thing that I think is really interesting is that Vasya is really aware of the traditional knowledge that she carries. And then when the priest comes into town, she's like, I have to defend this knowledge against this man because the knowledge that she had empowered her to be different. And what he wanted was to confine her into being this woman that she was not really. And also there is the trope of the death god and the maiden, and it's so good.
It's a good book.
It's so good.
Okay.
Not to have anyone?
I'm trying to think of ones that like tear down like large systems, because I can only think of ones that tear down like smaller like systems in a way, and it's not all necessary. Well, most of it's related to gender. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do those still work?
Yeah.
Okay, then I got a couple. So, first one I'm thinking of is There's Something About Sweetie by Sonia Menon, in the sense that it's not so much what she does as it is her attitude that is challenging how her mother sees how she's supposed to be, you know? While most of it's focused on the fact that Sweetie is fat, her mother, her aunt, and her cousins have views about how she's supposed to act, especially because of her weight, but just in general, and like how they see her worth. Literally, like her mom takes her away from an opportunity to date a really like attractive, nice boy because she doesn't think that it's a good like exchange. Like she doesn't think Sweetie matches up worth-wise to what a boy of his standing would be. So there's her tearing down that notion, like not just mostly within herself, but also like trying to explain to her mother, I am worth more than what you are putting on me. So I like that. There is Dead Girls by, I believe, Nakisa Afia, which is about a girl named Louise Lloyd. Alliteration always kills me. And the whole premise is set after, but a big part of the story is that she isn't what society wanted her to be, but especially her father, who was a preacher that expected, you know, like, you're going to go and get married to this boy, you're going to go have like this many kids, things like that. And this is what I expect of you. And she said no. And she ventured out. And even the police who are trying to use her in this case expect her to be a certain way. And she's like, that's not happening, sweetie. And I have a movie, actually, not a book.
Nice.
I don't know if any of you have seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding. It is one of my favorite movies, and I was making my friends watch it yesterday. We didn't finish it because I had mental breakdown, but we're gonna finish it today. Tula,
yes.
Tula breaks down like her entire family's, mainly her dad's, like idea of what they're supposed to be and how she's supposed to act. He even says in the thing like, this is what happens when you educate women. And the whole time we were having this live, I kept thinking about My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because there was the part where the mom, where she's like, Dad, I want to go to school. I want to learn about computers. She's 30 years old and asking, can I go to school, learn about computers, to help and things. And he says no. And her mom's like, I've got you.
Yeah.
So the mom goes. The mom is great in this movie. The mom goes and she's like, what's wrong with, Tula doing this? What's wrong with that? And he says something like, I'm the man, like, I'm the smart one. She needs to do this. And she goes, oh, so you think I'm dumb? And she says, like, she lists out all of the labor that she does, the mom. She lists out everything she does. She goes, I do this. I run the restaurant. I do this. I do this. I deal with your dumb butt. I pick up your clothes and do your laundry.
Mm-hmm.
I have raised 3 kids and things, and you think you're smarter than me? Thank God I have you to tie my shoes for me. And she storms out, and that's how the dad. That's why the dad lets Tula go to school.
I love her so much.
Right? The mom is. If you've seen the second one, the mom is still great. I've been living in sin. Like the mom.
Oh my God! I am an idiot. Yes. Holy shit. Okay. So the entire thing about Riel is that she is absolutely hated and starts to break free and get angry and just goes on this entire 3-book journey of just being so angry that she was limited to being like this just hated, like unwanted excess woman. And oh my God, she was so angry. She never gets redeemed, which is the greatest part. She just stays mad the whole time.
There's no redemption for Riel.
Rachel. Iron Widow.
Oh my God, Iron Widow.
Who fucking Zetian?
Oh
welcome to your nightmare.
She says, welcome to your nightmare. Why is she a nightmare? Because she's a witch. She's a heretic. She is an unwanted, loud, excess woman who is not doing what she was required to do. I love her. Another one is also The Year of the Witching, which I know Lo has feelings on, but yeah, that one would also work because I feel like even though I wish Emmanuel had gotten more angry, she still exists and she's still
like Emmanuel at the end of The Year of the Witch and just did like that one Mean Girls character. It was like, I wish I could just bake a cake and everybody would be okay. And it was just like,
why is that me in every situation though? I am the cake girl.
However, wait, let me pick it up and flex it. Wait a second.
Oh no, not the Brazilian edition again, being way better. We know you're better.
90% of the time the US.
I did buy the Brazilian edition of it.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Oh, Cinderella's dead, by the way.
And it's so good.
Oh, that's
it's
Cinderella's Dead is a really good example.
Cinderella is Dead, I feel like qualifies.
That is on a list across the United States of banned books that are getting banned. And why? Because it's particularly a woman of color, a young woman of color, breaking free of gendered stereotypes.
Who's into women?
A witch, and liberating other women, being told, I don't want to do this particular set of labor that has been set out for me just because I am a woman. Fuck that. It's so good, and it's a really short read. I love that book. Yes, so Cinderella is Dead, The Gracier, Wolf and the Woodsman, so many. And then Fury.
Speaking of movies as well, The Witch.
The Witch, your favorite. I was waiting for you to bring that
It's
up.
on my list specifically because I saw the post you had retweeted with the, if you idolize these women, you miss the point, because they were mad at the Good for Her cinematic universe. And I was like, why the hell is Marta Cabrera on a list where we're saying that you shouldn't idolize these women? So now I'm watching every movie that was on that list.
Hell yeah.
The Witch,
I'm starting with The Witch
good.
Because Thomason was the one that you had said she did nothing wrong.
The Witch has a scene that I feel like it's so it's so poetic. Like there's this scene that Thomasin and her mother, they butt heads the entire movie. They really don't like each other. But there is this one scene that they are fighting, and they're really, really fighting. They are like getting at it. And they fight and they hug and they fight and they hug, and they're like constantly in this midst of affection and anger at each other. It's A plus.
All right, I think that concludes. Although I think we could go on and on about this book. Talk about. There's just so much to talk about. I appreciate you both being here, and thank you for everybody who joined us, especially all of you, conversing in the chat. And huge thank you to Lo for helping me with the question and basically doing an entire explanation of the book. Next month's book is Abolition, Feminism Now by Angela Davis and others, and I'm very excited. Lo will be returning, Lois and Kelsey, and I think I scheduled one more person I can't remember right now, and I don't have my notes. So next month, Abolition, Feminism Now, date to be decided, and I think that wraps us up. So thank you all again.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.